They tried to claim victory. They tried to write the story of a Russian breakthrough. But in the fields, the ruined streets, and the shattered supply lines north of Kupiansk, a brutal reversal has begun. Ukrainian troops are forcing the occupiers back to the outskirts. What we see now isn't a collapse of Ukrainian defense. It is a collapse of Moscow's line. On the northeastern edge of Ukraine, after months of grueling street-by-street fighting, the balance of power near Kupiansk has shifted sharply. Forces of armed forces of Ukraine have pushed Russian units back toward the city's northern and northwestern outskirts, severing their supply routes and placing them inside what commanders call a kill zone around the city. For weeks, Moscow had loudly proclaimed dramatic gains. Videos of Russian flags uphill, claims of victory and encirclement, and bold declarations from the Kremlin, all of them meant to shape the narrative before international eyes. But on the ground, those claims began to unravel. In a televised statement, Lieutenant Colonel Viktor Trehubov, speaking for the Joint Forces operation, described how Ukraine had systematically dismantled the enemy's presence north of Kupiansk. He said reinforcements cannot reach Russian troops trapped near the city, and that those who remain are being hunted and killed, not in dramatic breakthroughs, but in attritional attrition. This is not a slow withdrawal. It is a forced retreat under pressure. Officials say bridges over the nearby Oskil River, the same waterway that has long defined the front line around Kupiansk, are effectively cut. Cross-river resupply is all but impossible, and the odds of reinforcing or evacuating Russian infantry trapped on the city's fringes are shrinking every hour. Inside the city, Ukrainian units from the Joint Forces Group, among them some of their most elite formations, are conducting clearing operations, rooting out sabotage detachments, hunting stray riflemen, reclaiming blocks, re-establishing defensive lines. The military reports that most of Kupiansk is back under Ukrainian control. To outside observers, the speed of the shift has a seismic quality. What once looked like a desperate Ukrainian defense, a city on its knees, now resembles a tightening vice closing around invading Russian detachments. Russian morale is fraying. The victory flags raised earlier are now taunting reminders of a failed attempt. For Kyiv, this reversal is more than tactical. Kupiansk matters. It is a hub, a threshold, a pressure point. Moscow's campaign here was meant to deliver not just territory, but symbolism, a reprise of earlier advances, a demonstration of Russia's ability to push deep and hold ground. That possibility is collapsing. As Ukrainian forces continue to consolidate, as supply lines for the enemy vanish, the campaign to reclaim the city enters a critical phase, one where steely resolve, sharp tactics, and drone-enabled tempo may finish what months of brutal warfare began. In a war defined by momentum, Kupiansk may be the latest turning point, and on this winter front line, the cold, harsh truth is already taking hold. The front has collapsed for Moscow's troops. They did not expect the walls to crack so fast. Under the cold sky over the fields north of Kupiansk, the Russian grip is unraveling. And on the fronts, that is turning into a ghastly rout. Ukrainian units are advancing quietly, methodically, committing to a purge of the last pockets of occupation. Reports from the frontline command confirm that almost all pipelines once used as secret infiltration routes by Russian forces have been destroyed or flooded. The final escape valves slammed shut. With supply lines cut and reinforcements blocked, Russian detachments left on Kupiansk's outskirts are increasingly isolated. In many northern districts, what remains of their presence is disjointed squads, cut off, surrounded, and unable to coordinate. Ukrainian defenders, backed by drone surveillance and artillery, are conducting targeted search and strike operations. This isn't just urban clear-out. This is strategic dismantling. The forces of armed forces of Ukraine are reclaiming not merely neighborhoods, but entire layers of territory, pushing the occupiers back behind the river barrier. What had been the Russian bridgehead along the Oskil River is now collapsing under pressure. On the ground in Kupiansk, Ukrainian troops face fewer broad assaults. Instead, they engage in surgical operations aimed at rooting out residual enemy fighters, saboteurs, reconnaissance detachments, fragmented infantry groups who once hoped to blend into destroyed buildings or forest patches. Each cleared house, each seized street is another blow to Russian morale, another murmur of desperation among the occupiers. Meanwhile, Russian attempts to wage war through infiltration, once reliant on subterranean pipes and covert river crossings, have been rendered futile. Pipelines destroyed, river crossings under Ukrainian control, Any attempt at resupply or escape now means crossing open territory under drones, artillery, and watchful eyes. To many of the remaining Russian fighters, the winter landscape north of Kupiansk is not just cold, it has turned predatory. Surrounding woods have become death traps. Roads once used for supply convoys are now ambush corridors. The illusion of reinforcements has faded. What once was a front is now a noose. For Kyiv, this is more than a tactical success. It is the reclamation of dignity, of space, of the right to defend a city that has endured too much. Kupiansk, a rail hub, a strategic gateway through the northeast, is returning home inch by inch under relentless pressure, under precise and cold determination. But the fight is not over. Isolated Russian pockets may yet attempt desperate reprisals. Mines, booby traps, sabotage, all could mark a final brutal gasp. Even as Ukrainian forces advance, vigilance remains critical. The city may be largely under Ukrainian control, but clearing it is a slow, dangerous business. This is how wars are won, not in grand declarations or flashy breakthroughs, but in the quiet reclaiming of streets, the steady closing of escape routes, the dismantling of enemy hope around every corner. The remaining Russian formations around Kupiansk are no longer acting like an organized force. Their movements, as reported by Ukrainian commanders and confirmed through official channels, resemble the final stages of a collapsing front. Scattered, reactive, and driven by survival rather than strategy. Ukrainian units describe encounters not with cohesive battalions, but with small, exhausted groups attempting to slip through tree lines or abandoned structures, often without communication links or reliable intelligence guiding them. Their command architecture, once built to pressure the Kupiansk axis, is faltering under the weight of sustained Ukrainian counter-operations and the total loss of secure resupply corridors. Inside the operational zone, the Ukrainian advance is not marked by speed, but by precision. Engineering teams move behind assault groups, dismantling mines and improvised traps left behind by retreating Russian elements. Armored vehicles advance only after drone reconnaissance confirms safe passages. The clearing of industrial areas and railway segments underscores the intensity of the effort. These zones were previously used by Russian forces as staging points, and their loss signals a severe reduction in Moscow's ability to mount renewed offensives in the region. Commanders emphasize that the work is slow, deliberate, and focused on eliminating any remaining threats embedded within the city's infrastructure. As the front retracts northward and northeastward, a wider strategic reality becomes evident. Russian forces operating in the Kupiansk direction relied heavily on their ability to exploit terrain advantages along the Oskil River and maintain pressure through rotational reinforcement. With these elements broken, the structure that once supported their campaign in this sector is dissolving. Ukrainian analysts point out that the cut to pipeline routes, combined with the loss of infiltration channels, has eliminated one of the last remaining logistical lifelines used by Russian units attempting to bypass Ukrainian control. These disruptions have been acknowledged by Ukrainian officials who detailed how the systematic destruction of these routes has sharply restricted enemy mobility. Meanwhile, Russia's broader military posture in the northeast appears strained. The high command in Moscow had expected sustained pressure near Kupiansk to serve as a political symbol, and a battlefield demonstration ahead of diplomatic engagements and internal messaging efforts. Yet, this reversal undermines that narrative. State media projections, previously declaring sweeping territorial success, now clash with on-the-ground reports, indicating that Ukrainian forces hold the majority of the city and are actively pushing the front outward. The contrast between official claims and battlefield reality has become increasingly visible, further eroding the credibility of earlier proclamations of control. On the Ukrainian side, morale has surged. Soldiers interviewed by national outlets describe a renewed sense of momentum, not merely because territory has been retaken, but because the Russian assault, once portrayed as unstoppable, has been forced backward under sustained and coordinated defense. The involvement of specialized Ukrainian units tasked with counter-sabotage work has accelerated the stabilization of key urban sectors. Each secured building, each captured position, reinforces the sense that Kupiansk is no longer contested ground, but a defensive strongpoint once again firmly aligned with Ukrainian command. Still, military officials warn that unpredictability remains. Russian forces pushed back from the city's edges could attempt larger regrouping north of the current line, potentially preparing new strikes to reclaim influence over the supply corridors, leading to the wider Kharkiv region. Ukrainian analysts highlight that even a weakened enemy can exploit lapses in vigilance. The ongoing drone surveillance across surrounding forests and riverbanks demonstrates how seriously commanders take the possibility of renewed infiltration attempts, even as the tactical landscape favors Ukraine more decisively than it has in recent months. Kupiansk stands now as a testament to the resilience of Ukraine's defenders and the fragility of offensives built on overstretched supply and distorted political expectations. What happened here was not the result of a sudden breakthrough, but of the steady erosion of an invading force's capacity to hold ground under relentless counterpressure. The collapse of Russian positions near the city reflects a broader dynamic shaping the conflict. Territory gained through brute momentum can be lost just as quickly when confronted by disciplined resistance and strategic recalibration. In the cold air settling over the region, with streets being cleared and defensive lines extended outward, the meaning of this moment is unmistakable. The battle for Kupiansk has shifted decisively, and the consequences will echo across the entire northeastern axis. If you want more clear, fact-based reporting on events shaping the world, consider subscribing to the channel.